Kendall from Pro Investing 24/7. This week we're going to talk about rent-to-own situations and when they might be applicable and when they wouldn't be. Rent-to-own is one of the fastest growing parts of the market right now because think about it. We've got a lot of people displaced from the recession and a lot of people have been filed for bankruptcies, foreclosed on, lost their jobs. And a lot of these people, they just need a place to live. You know, we haven't seen a spike in the homeless population, so what are these people doing? They're renting or they're renting to own. Why? Because of course the bank isn't going to write them a mortgage because their credit's just been ruined. So if you're an investor and you have a property that you're having trouble moving, the rent-to-own situation might be a really good option for you to get somebody in who eventually will be able to buy the property from you. Now there's some things to think about in a rent-to-own situation. Number one, what's the term? The term in a rent-to-own situation is determined by the financial institution who's going to be funding the tenant. And what happens is they come in, they look at the potential tenant, they look at their whole financial background. That would be their salaries, their tax returns, their debt-to-income ratios, their debt, all that stuff. And based on all that, they'll look and say, okay, if they make 18 on-time rental payments, then we'll write them a mortgage. And then you have a normal closing just like anything else. The reason that really works for everybody involved is because maybe right now they have that bad credit, but after 18 months, the bank is counting on them not doing anything else to ruin their credit, and in making those on-time payments, they will improve their credit. And at the end of 18 months, they'll write them a mortgage. Now that 18 months isn't fixed. It could be, I've seen rent-to-own terms be as little as 10, and I've seen them be as much as 36 months. I've seen people getting in rent-to-own situations with bankruptcies and foreclosures. Usually, the banks just want you to get 2 years away from those things. So if you can at least get 24 months of on-time payments, then many banks will write that mortgage today. All right, another aspect about the rent-to-own situation, of course, is the security deposit and the risk premium. So let's break those into two parts. The rent-to-own situation is governed by two documents. The first document, of course, is the lease, which is a normal landlord-tenant relationship, which has a security deposit, which is generally 1 month's rent. That's pretty common. Everybody understands that. The second part of it is governed by a document called the option to purchase agreement. In that option to purchase agreement, it spells out how much is ultimately going to be paid by the house, the term of the deal, which is determined by the financial institution, as well as a risk premium. That risk premium is the equivalent of the security deposit for that document. That risk premium, there's some things to think about there. Number one, it's totally negotiable between buyer and seller. It can be literally any amount that buyer and seller agree to. Number two, the seller is basically covered by the risk premium in the event that the tenant does not go through with the agreement, i.e., in our example where we used 18 months, let's say they get 16 months into the agreement and the renters decide to bunk out on the agreement and not ultimately buy the house. Well, then that risk premium, whatever amount it is, automatically goes to the seller of the property. But it also works for the buyer. If they do go through with the agreement, the buyer can say to the seller, hey, Mr. Seller, I'll pay your risk premium, but if and only if that risk premium is applied to the purchase price of the house ultimately. I've never seen a seller say no. It's in the seller's best interest to work with that buyer to get them into the house. The seller wants to sell the house, the buyer wants to buy the house. Why wouldn't the seller strike that deal? Okay, so in short, let's summarize. The rent-to-own situation is perfect for a couple different people. It's perfect for renters who maybe have always wanted to buy but didn't think they could. A rent-to-own situation is a vehicle for them to do so. So whenever they're looking at properties, maybe they ask the agent or the banker whether or not it's a scenario they can go down. It's perfect for the seller or the investor who may have a house that they've rehabbed and it's just sitting there. Or it doesn't even have to be rehab, but it's just not moving on the market. A rent-to-own scenario, offering a rent-to-own scenario to a potential buyer or renter is a great way to move the house. So please, by all means, we have a lot more information out of our web pages. Please check us out on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter. Thanks, have a great day.